community church. We're looking at how we could partner together and develop a collaborative ministry in the Jefferson-Chalmers community, and SOAR was brought to our attention. And so together we began a journey that united us, SOAR Detroit, us meaning Christ Church Grosse Pointe, SOAR Detroit, and Carstens Academy. Now, we've been volunteering at Carstens as part of the Carstens Literacy Initiative since 2019, working to ensure that young students become young and thriving readers. This year, we're fortunate to be working with our third graders, as we typically do. I think we also have some second graders that are coming into the program there at Carstens. And it's the SOAR program that we're implementing. So we provide, Christ Church provides the lion's share of volunteers. SOAR provides the lion's share of executive leadership in teaching. So, and the program behind the scenes. And I want to say it's that program that drew me into this collaboration. It's a brilliant way of ensuring that a volunteer, someone like myself, who has no training in education, has no training in literacy development, can sit down effectively for 45 minutes with a young reader and help them progress. It's a wonderful program and tool that they've put together to ensure that we can make a meaningful difference in a young person's life. And as this video will show us, and I hope our conversation will illuminate, the need is critical. We probably all take for granted the journey of reading and literacy that we went through. It just kind of happened. And it just kind of happens for the most part for our kids. But it doesn't just happen for every child. And the cost of failing in that space, the cost of falling behind in literacy is a lifelong cost that our young people and adults pay. And so I'm really passionate about this work. I'm extremely grateful, Doug, for you and for the work of SOAR. So with that, I'm going to just kind of kick us off. We have a little video we get to watch, and then some conversation for us.
Great.
All right. Or not for a while.
We're 3 years into the program, and I tutored a young boy. And I've been serving kids in the city for 12 years by then. And I just had this realization sitting across this young man that he was smart. I actually thought to myself, this kid's as smart as my kid. The problem with that is I believed something, right? There was a prejudice in me that I didn't even know existed. And there I sat with this little boy and realized that there's something dark about what I believe, that because he was black, he wasn't as smart as my kid. How sick is that?
Say the whole thing all over again.
What do you like to do?
Mm-hmm.
I like to draw.
Good job. All right, next page.
I've been in Detroit all my life, man, and I saw the neighborhood kind of decline a little bit. Both my parents dropped out of school in the 10th grade. Like, it wasn't no bedtime stories in my house, right? I ended up going to jail when I was 17. Luckily, I got wise quick and realized, okay, I'm gonna make some change, but I had a couple of buddies that went to jail for murder when they were 17. Took it to trial, got life.
Students who can't read by third grade are much more likely to end up in prison. Students who don't learn to read by third grade are exceedingly more likely to get pregnant before they finish high school.
The Detroit school system tested at the bottom in the nation in terms of its math proficiency and reading proficiency.
It's a system that's broken and keeps kids, especially urban kids, held back.
Up until third grade, students learn to read, and after third grade, they read to learn.
So if someone is struggling and lagging behind academically, SOAR comes in to catch them right before they fall.
Every day I come in, go to tutoring, she's always in my partner. She's really nice. My favorite grade helps me to be a better reader. I like to read a lot and I just keep on reading. My favorite books are Sophia, Tour Story. One of my favorite books is Cat in the Hat. I like reading Curious George. One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. I want to be able to read through a whole book by tomorrow.
When you come in here, you just see all the goodness and the hope and the inspiration and the love. It's just a whole vibe when you walk in here.
We bring kids in, test them, find out what they need, and then we deliver the program that they need to succeed in a face-to-face, one-on-one setting.
Not only does it teach that child how to read, but it builds relationships.
You know, there's days I've left here and I've gotten in my car and I just started crying of happiness.
If we could, do you want a second? You okay?
I'm okay.
And the reason we've been able to grow a lot faster than our counterparts is simply because we're working with the church and asking churches to send mentors and staffing our programs that way.
I'm not sure it can be done without the faith community.
And I know there's a lot of maybe churches outside of the city that want to come back and help and give out, then that's definitely a good thing. But I think the church people will really be surprised that when they get out here in what I call the trenches, not only are they going to be helping to fix the problem, but they're going to get fixed. They're going to get helped. Because sometimes in the church is a sense of, oh, we got it right and they don't. Which Jesus is not happy with that, you know what I'm saying?
If I had a message, it's we have a chance to actually change a broken system. And the broken education system is the quintessential definition of injustice. And if God says, I love justice, then the churches need to step into the injustice and make a difference in this broken education system. Kind of says it all.
I know, it's like, oh, we're done. Yeah. What do you, I think let me just start with what's the reality of the injustice that you see most glaring today? You know, what's the crisis that we're really facing?
Wow. I mean, to stay with what we're talking about in the literacy project, I mean, there is a crisis in education happening in the United States, not just in the urban environment. Reading skills are in the decline, but in Detroit, they're even more abysmal, and a lot of it comes from systems that were put in place decades ago, and processes that were put in place decades ago, and for me, the injustice is every kid deserves a chance. Every kid's not going to take advantage of it. The early days of SOAR, some of it was born out of my own son's experience, who went to school in Grosse Pointe. In second grade, was identified as a struggling reader by the Grosse Pointe system. They put him in a remedial training program. He thought he was going to the Brilliant Kids program, so they saved his dignity in the way they did it, right? And he went and they taught him to read, and U of M ended up paying for his education. So he was caught, right? And for me, every kid deserves that chance. And, you know, Jake had a successful education career because somebody caught him, and that just doesn't happen in the city of Detroit. So we're stepping into what I think is an injustice for every kid, regardless of what's going on around them. They just deserve a chance. And that's what you guys are giving every kid at Carstens, and that's what we want to give every kid in Detroit. We're the reading proficiency in Detroit is 13%. 13% of the kids in the classroom can read at grade level. It's just, yeah, it's
Incomprehensible.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a great word for it. And it's just, it is an injustice. But we get, and I just want to make sure I say this, I don't miss saying this. The partnership we have with Christ Church and the Carstens Literacy Initiative it's the model. It's, when we talk to other funders, when we talk to the foundations, we point to this and say, this can work if we have a faith community that's willing to step in like you guys have. So thank you. You've really, what you're doing is we couldn't do it without you.
It's a mutual feeling. Let's dive into that a little bit for a moment, because it's an odd thing to think about this kind of collaborative partnership between the public space, school, state, two churches, and a not-for-profit. If we kind of take SOAR and put it in this unique little space. We don't find many organizations or collaborations that pull on all of those resources. Why do you say that it's so important that we do?
I'm not sure if you're asking me why is it important that we have partnerships, or why is it important that we...
Do we have partnerships, but specifically the three partnerships that we have? Because I agree with you. I think this is a critical model for how, well, in this case, literacy, but other issues could really successfully be addressed. And I want to kind of pull on that. You said it in the video, how essential it is, and you just said it now, that it's essential that we have, in this case, a church behind this program, not just a bunch of paid professionals, for instance.
Yeah, well, some of the answer to that is it's just not affordable. The only way to deliver the program, imagine if all of you who were going to Carstens had to be paid, it's just not an affordable way to deliver the system. But I do think that there's something else going on when we can get churches who, it was really a blessing for my wife Meg and I to sit through the service, but very different in our expression of faith, very different, very solid in the fact that we all have our faith in Jesus, but very different. And I think there's something beautiful about diverse faith communities coming together and being able to lock arms and do. We need way more of that in the world of Christianity, in the world of churches, where there seems to be as much division there as there is in the world. So for me, I think it's just a beautiful thing that I can even point to Christ Church and say, look, this is a partnership. It's a beautiful partnership, and I just think it's awesome. So, and we are different, but yet we have that core belief and that core strength of being one in Christ, and we sure need more of that.
Malcolm in the video who talks about, if we come, if you come to fix us, you might find yourself fixed.
Yeah.
I certainly know that to be the case. I think there's something profound that's happening within our community of volunteers, and even beyond those who are directly volunteering. But I wonder, from your perspective, what's the impact? What's being fixed in those of us that come and volunteer? What's going on in that space?
At the risk, maybe it's easier to answer that question just personally.
Sure.
So, quick story. I came out of the business sector. I was with Kinko's, so that's what brought Meg and I, my wife Meg is over here, to the Grosse Pointe area. So the Kinko's store that was at work. But we sold that and we started the nonprofit in the city doing sports. And what I discovered pretty quickly was there was a lot of biases that I brought into my ministry and working in the city. A lot of things I believed. You saw it in the video. There was just an epiphany at some point in that video that these kids are as smart as my kids, and the darkness of that is that I actually believed that these kids weren't as smart because they were kids of color. There was something deeper. We all have biases. What I'm trying to be careful here is I'm not trying to lay that bias on you, but I think we all come into life with our own preconceived biases, and there's something that happens when you just cross normal boundaries, and you begin to spend time with people who live differently, have a different sort of place. And so for me personally, it's just been an awakening, especially with the kids. I think I even had a chance to talk just a little bit, like, man, these kids they're brilliant. They just need an opportunity. And I think sometimes as a society, and again, I want to be really careful, I'm not trying to lay anything on any of you particular, but as a society, sometimes we think, well, you know, it's something deeper. It's something that they're not capable of, and it's just, that's the big lie. Plus, when you give, when you serve like that, I mean, it's just, God shows up. God softens your heart. God changes your perspective. It bleeds into your home life. It's all of that, which is really even part of your message today. We humble ourselves. You know, the beauty of Christ is he was Christ Emmanuel with us, and then he tells us to go be with the people. So,
no, I think I hear over and over again the impact that the mentors, the mentoring has on the mentors, from the joy that they experience. Sure. I mean, the sheer love. I mean, it's just. I had one volunteer talking with me about, you know, I go to Carstens every week, and every time I go, I am assured of a hug, you know, by a young boy or a young girl, out of simple gratitude and appreciation for that relationship. So I hear that gift all the time. I can't help but also, you know, one of the things I hear, and maybe a little place for us to chat about, yeah, I hear it as an eye-opening experience for mentors. You know, we have so much prejudice, and I don't mean prejudice just in the derogatory sense of prejudice. I mean prejudice in the sense of we've already understand the problem before we've ever actually seen the problem. You know, and so we think the problem, you know, the language I hear at times is we think the problem's laziness. Right. We think the problem is bad parenting, disinterested parenting, you know, things of that. Administration that doesn't care, exactly. You know, all these things, and then we go into the school, and we see. I don't want to say we see all of those problems. What we see various expressions. We certainly see families that struggle and where caring isn't the way we would care. We see things like that. But we realize that's not actually the problem. There's something far broader going on that these kids, you know, and these families, why are they facing every single problem? You know, the thing we're hearing the most of right now, or a thing we're hearing a lot about, is uncleanliness. You know, it's mind-boggling, I think, perhaps for all of us to think. But our mentors are experiencing kids who have been wearing the same clothes since they saw them last week. And not just the same clothes, I mean, literally the uncleaned same clothes that they've been wearing since last week. So they're going on 7, 8, couple of weeks. You know, and that's just a little, it opens our eyes to say, wow, there's a lot more going on here than what I thought when I was just at Christ Church. And so it just, I think one of the things is it's just kind of expanding our eyes, opening our eyes and our hearts to realize this is a much more complex problem. And so you kind of, I don't know if you say it directly, but you certainly hint at it, that this problem, it's decades old. Sure. It's generational. Sure. So let's unpack that a little bit. What are some of these generational systemic problems that you're aware of from your work with Eagle Sports, your work with SOAR, kind of watching our society respond to poverty and, in this case, illiteracy?
You ask hard questions. No. I should have gotten them in writing beforehand, so I could think. I think what we know to be true statistically, a lot of research is it's hard to break generational poverty. It's a very difficult process. We also know that literacy and education is one of the only solutions to that. It's just not going to get any better if we don't get to the children when they're young, and literacy is the key. The stats are, they're staggering of what happens when a child learns to read at an early age, how it plays out in breaking. But it is not going to happen, or it is very, very unlikely to happen if we don't solve this one issue of literacy. If a child can't read by third grade, the stats are astronomical as to, being on public assistance, unwanted pregnancies, so just a lot, even imprisonment. They're all very trackable, very easy to see the stat. So for me, there are some things about what we've been doing in the city now for 25 years that I don't know how to solve, but I know how to solve this one. And it changes a child's life. Meg and I have been tutoring the same young man for 3 years. When he came to us, probably second grade, probably would have been considered kindergarten or even pre-K reading level. He's reading at grade level. Look, what I know to be true is the trajectory of his life is different because of that one thing. And to know what would have happened had he not come is huge. So I don't know that we're ever going to fix the broken system across the whole city. The older I get, the more but man, we can change the life. And you have. And I heard the stories already of this child and this child and this child. And to me, that's all we can do. And I do think it breaks the chain. And some of it is even just building a level of self-confidence in a child. Because if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe you have what it takes, if you don't believe, look, you're not going to succeed at anything if you just have, and not being able to read it's debilitating to your self-esteem. Like, if you have a chance to be with adults who struggle to read, it's hard to have a high level of self-esteem when that's a major problem. Because we read all the time. It's how we function in society.
Realize how much you're reading.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I hope, I've never thought about this. We hear this language of developing grit in our society and our kids. I hope that those children who consciously overcome a reading deficit come to realize how remarkably talented they are. Sure. Right? I mean, it's a hard thing to learn to read. And the later you start, the harder it is. For sure. And so each of the kids that we're mentoring is doing something, they're going about literacy the hard way, and they're succeeding, right? So I just quietly hope that, Caden can look back on that experience and say, I'm remarkable. I did something few people can actually do. Right. I learned to read later, right. But I've learned it. So kudos to you, Meg, and to Caden.
So when we do the training, I used to do the training live. I think most of you probably sat through a video training. I used to always say to the trainees, I think Meg and I were great parents. Our kids have turned out pretty well. But our kids didn't get 2 hours a week of one-on-one across the table. You have what it takes. And that's part of the brilliance of the program. It is a well-thought-through program, but when you sit across the table from a young person and tell them you're smart, and tell them they have what it takes, and see things in them and call them out, and it is going to bear fruit in their lives. There's also a lot of statistics out there that every child needs one adult relationship that's not a parent or a teacher in order to really succeed. So you become that one adult relationship that they just know somebody loved me, somebody cared. We all need to know deep in our spirit that I was seen, I was loved, I was cared for, and it'll bear fruit for sure.
Remarkable fruit.
Yep.
You're facing into this problem probably more directly than any of us are. what are the obstacles to a successful collaboration like we have? I'm really flattered and grateful that we're doing something really right. But I know it's been hard to kind of build that elsewhere. What are some of the obstacles that we're facing in bringing that success to another place?
We don't have, just apart from Grace, which I have a little influence at Grace to get them motivated. We don't have another church partnership like what we have with Christ Church. So for me, that's a big obstacle. It's been harder than I would have expected to get other faith communities to jump in, but it's a big commitment. I told Meg on the way here, I'm amazed at what y'all are willing to do. The fact that you're willing to go to a Detroit precinct and be fingerprinted and before you could go to the school. I mean, it's an enormous ask, and it's hard to get other faith communities to believe in it. I don't know that there is another solution, bigger picture, than getting the faith community organized. We're doing great getting some of the kids out of the Grosse Pointe school system that are honors society to serve in the after-school programs. But the best place to deliver the program is in the school. And the only way to do that is to get faith communities who are willing to send people in during the school day and deliver. But it's not the schools. We have an open invitation to as many schools as we want. Nobody's doing what we're doing as well as we're doing it. So the educators, the administration are quick to say, absolutely, we'll take it. It's finding that volunteer base. And then there is a cost factor. So some of it's funding, which you're also playing a huge part in helping us to fund the program. But yeah, it takes a volunteer army. For every child at Carstens, it takes a couple of mentors, and that adds up pretty quick. So.
You mentioned the fingerprinting as an example. What are some of the obstacles that you think other faith communities experience or are kind of shying away from?
I don't know the answer to that question as well, Rashad. I think some of it is they're skeptical that it's really going to work. I think at the risk of, I'm trying to be careful I don't say something that's, I think in a lot of cases churches want, faith communities want their own thing that they've invented themselves, that they're, which I don't know how to say that nicely, but I've just found it, and in some cases they don't want to do what we're doing, they just want to go recreate it, which I always say, bless you, good luck with that. I mean, we have over 20 years of experience in doing what we're doing. We've paid a lot of dumb tax along the way, so you can either come with us, learn from us, or, so I just think that's part of it. I think I do think the faith community is more divided than we maybe want to admit, and so there's, well, if Christ Church is doing it, we don't want to, or if Grace is doing it, which is sad. So
we're remarkably competitive in the church space. Yeah. I'll let you in on a dream. I would call it a dream of mine. We started the Carstens Literacy Initiative, but it wasn't long after that I started writing the Detroit Literacy Initiative. If we can figure out how to do this well. Is there a way to replicate it and create the kind of energy within the faith community to be committed to literacy throughout Detroit? And so I still hold that out. The need is overwhelming, but the reward is even greater. Yeah,
it really does. It really is an opportunity to change a broken system. I mean, if you think about the challenges that Detroit is facing, there probably isn't, that I don't know of any other one thing we could do that would actually move the needle and make a difference when it comes to generational poverty, when it comes to those things. I mean, it really is. And so I agree with you. And I actually think if we can get the faith community rallied and fired up, I think there are groups out there that would fund it at a much higher level. We had a conversation with Ballmer. Steve Ballmer was a bigwig in Microsoft, and their words to us is, we need something bigger. We want something, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars that he's trying to give away and saying to us, it's yes, we can support you, but we want something. And I think if we found that bigger piece and we had the solution, they're not going to invest unless we have the volunteer army, because it's just not doable. But if you had that, I do think there's funders that would come along because of the size and the scope, and because the entire United States knows Detroit's, we said it in the video, we lead the country in this area of inefficient reading. So it's a great opportunity to fix a broken problem that then could be replicated in Chicago and everywhere else.
Yeah. I agree. Let's talk about a side of church life and not-for-profit life that nobody really wants to talk about, which is the cost, right? There's a great volunteer army that brings the cost down, but it doesn't eliminate the cost. And I don't know that we really see and understand the cost that is there. So why don't you tell us a bit about what the Carstens Literacy Initiative costs? How do you, because you bear the cost in a way, we're helping to fund it, great, but you see the cost in a much more real way. So help us understand that.
So the cost to educate a child in SOAR last year was about $2,000 per child. We are working hard to bring that down. This year it'll be closer to $1,500. So for every child that signs up, it costs us about $1,500 that year to take them through the program. The real cost for the program, and the reason the program works, is every child gets what you guys experience as a lesson plan, but that's created by someone behind the scenes who is a trained educator. So I always say it the same way. If a teacher had the ability to think about one of their students every time they walk in the classroom, I'm gonna make my entire lesson plan for little Johnny. Little Johnny's gonna excel in school, right? The other 25 kids might not, but Johnny's gonna do well because she's thinking, he's thinking, the teacher's thinking, what does Johnny need? How does Johnny learn best? Where is Johnny proficient in math or reading? And that's what we do with every single student every single week, is we create a thought-through lesson plan for that particular child, where it's grade level, it's where they're struggling within their grade level. We worked on consonant blends, TH sounds for almost a whole year with Caden, because that's where he was struggling. He just couldn't quite get TH worked out, So that's the major cost, is there's a behind the scenes, but that's also the secret sauce, so that when you walk in and you sit down with your child, you're not having to think through. It's even what you said. I don't have an education background in that realm, so I'm not going to be able to sit down with Caden and decide what's best for Caden. I just got to follow the folder. And somebody who's much smarter than me has told me, I always use the same example. Our daughter Casey was 12 when she mentored a second grader, and the second grader went up 2 grade levels in that year of tutoring. And our daughter is brilliant, but she was 12. Right, and the whole point is that it can be delivered by almost anyone who's a little further along in their reading and can just follow the lesson plans. But that's the big cost for us, is just it requires full-time people who are thinking about every child every week. So if you're going to serve, 500 kids, someone's creating 500 lesson plans every session. So,
and twice a week.
Yeah, right. And we are moving towards one lesson plan that will cover 2 sessions as a way. So we're trying to also figure out how do we bring down the cost to educate and not compromise on the grade level improvement. We really, our goal is to see two grade levels per year of tutoring if we have the child for the whole year. And we traditionally have been able to see that result, which is, if you think about it, it's huge.
I think, I was raised on videos of hunger and awareness, with the cost of feeding a family being $1 a day, right? You've just given us a number that's about $5 a day to educate and ensure that one child learns to read. And that's it. For $1,500, we are ensuring that a child moves up 1, 2, 3 grade levels this year, and we can do more of that. So let's speak a little bit about impact. What is the kind of tangible impact you see on improvement? You see the numbers in a way that well, you see the numbers more directly than we do. That's a better way to say that. So what kind of impact does the SOAR have on a student?
Oh, yeah, it's life-changing. I think we have students now, so we've been doing it for 20 years. We have students that have, gone on to major universities. It just changes the trajectory completely. But we also see, and I think we're even seeing it at Carstens. Carstens, I don't know if they tell you this on the front end, but it's one of the lowest performing Detroit schools. But even as you talk to the administration there, they're already seeing a difference. And part of what you're doing is you're relieving an incredible pinch point of pressure for the teachers themselves. The teachers, they can't do this. If you have 87% of your kids that can't read at grade level, you're not going to be able to get to each one of those kids to get them to grade level. So we're actually relieving a pressure point and allowing the teachers to be more successful in all of their other teachings and all their, so it will change. We stay at Carstens. I guarantee Carstens is going to, it's going to go up across the board and then, what we do know about literacy is when you have a passion for literacy, when you learn to love to read, math comes easier, social study, all the other subjects tend to come together. So it's going to change the school dramatically, which will make a huge difference for sure.
And it changes us dramatically as well. Well, I'm going to maybe open it up for a couple of questions. What kind of questions are we feeling about either SOAR Detroit specifically or the Carstens Literacy Initiative? I'll repeat the questions. I see Deb in the back.
Obviously, I'm dedicated to our faith communities, but I come from a different side professionally as well. With all of the renaissance happening in Detroit and companies that appear to be dedicated to that, and I know some corporations have a culture that they want to put forth of volunteering, has there been any thought of approaching any of the companies in downtown Detroit to allow their employees to spend 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week doing the volunteering? And then I'm going to ask 2 questions at once, and you don't need to answer the other one. I'm a product of something called outcome-based education.
Sure.
And I thought perhaps when you're doing the lesson plans, it could alleviate some of the pinch on the time if maybe you had segments. And for me, until I passed a segment, I couldn't go on to the next one. So if there were to be, I don't know, a month, as soon as the TH sound was achieved, what's the next having evaluated the child? So that one I don't need answered, but just if somebody hadn't thought of it, I'm throwing that out.
Yes.
Also the thought on corporations.
So I'm going to repeat the question just because we got some viewers online that may not have heard. So given the revitalization of Detroit that we're seeing both residentially and particularly corporately, what efforts have been made to reach out to the corporate community for increased volunteerism and participation?
Yeah, so we've had conversations over the last year and a half with Saxy, which is a huge construction company who's bringing some people to the table, with people at General Motors trying to get them. It has been a harder, there seems to be interest, but it's hard to get them to close the deal. The idea there would be, so this is a complicated answer. If we went to a completely online system where it was virtual, then it's a much easier sell, because then GM, for instance, would say, yep, we'll give people an hour, we'll pay them for an hour, but they can stay online and they can help. But what we found during COVID is it really didn't work, and it especially didn't work with that age group. So we saw a dramatic drop, same number of hours. So we've really moved away from any virtual tutoring, but but Saxy's helping us to get an audience with some of the other, Rocket Mortgage, some of them to have a conversation, with the idea being that if we can find a school that's right in their backyard, where it's not even a commuting thing, it's just hey, I'm gonna walk down for lunch today, and I'm gonna go to that elementary school literally across the street. So hopefully that can happen. I think it could be a huge, the second question was about outcome-based education. I think that's exactly how the lesson plans, while I'm not one of the education specialists, that's exactly, it's very much, within each grade level, they know exactly what they need next, and it moves to that right away. There's 4 sections of each folder, and you're seeing the progression even in their reading level. The kids are all, I think you guys all know this, the reading levels are all done by color, and we do that to save the dignity of the child, because we don't want a child who's in 3rd grade seeing I'm reading a 1st grade book, so they're reading, red, then they're reading blue, then they're reading green, and they just get to celebrate they've moved up a color. So that, in a lot of ways, is the outcome-based education system.
Betsy and Mary? Yeah. Questions there. One is kind of what proportion of kids are we capturing within the Carstens, within Carstens Academy? And then secondly, where, I guess maybe if I'm hearing it right, Betsy, where is the breakdown? Are we fixing a school system, or are we just kind of capturing up a system of that's even beyond the schools in preparing the kids? Where are we coming in?
First question one more time, sorry.
Proportion of
Yeah, I think at Carstens, we are just scratching the surface of the number of kids that need us. Some of that is that we don't have enough volunteers, and God bless you, I'm amazed at how many volunteers we do have, so please don't take that as any kind of, like, you guys should be producing more. No, not at all. But I think we've had conversations with the administration there that we really should be in with the 2nd graders, the 3rd graders, and the 4th graders. If we really want to change the system, changes the school culture, the reading level completely. I think that they would allow us to, but I think we would have to kind of produce, which maybe that is finding some other faith communities that Drew is connected with that would say, hey, we're willing to do this with you. You've shown us how, but we somehow have to get a bigger army to show up there. And I would say, to the second part of the question, it's never going to get better unless we can change that 13% number. But for the record, pre-COVID, it was 20%. Right, and almost across the board in the United States, there's about a 10% drop in literacy, even in the Grosse Points, even in the suburban setting. Like, something happened during COVID. The kids didn't get what they needed, even though they were trying. So if you think about the story I started with our son Jake, the reason they could do what they did with Jake was in a, say it the right way, he was a minority of number of kids that couldn't read, right? So if you have a class of 20 kids, there was 25 kids, there were 2 or 3, probably at the most. And it's a completely different problem to solve when you have 2 or 3 kids in a classroom who need, and again, I think Meg and I are good parents. I don't know that we would have known that Jake was struggling had the school not caught him, had the school not said, hey, we'd like to put him in the system, help him to read better. So when we can get a school like Carstens to where it's flipped on its head and only 13% of the kids are struggling to read, we may not even need to be there anymore. But when you think about the cost even for the administration, which is part of what you're asking, is it a lack of resources? Sure, it's a lack of resources to teach 87% of the kids to get up to proficiency. It becomes a snowball, right? It just affects everything in the classroom. I mean, how do you even teach a class when, by the time you get to fourth grade, the stats are the same. 87% of your kids can't read in fourth grade, and everything you're handing them is, okay, read this story problem, okay, read this history lesson, like, it's just.
They can't do it.
Right.
Yeah. No, Malcolm said it in the video. His parents didn't read. So there were no bedtime stories in his household. And that story is not going to change tomorrow. Even if we do everything you just articulated, and we flip the system at Carstens, and we get 90% of their kids reading, that third grader is not a parent for another 20 years, right? And that child, that future student, isn't a student for 25 years. Right. I mean, we're talking about planting a seed that's not going to really change until a generation of parents are able to read to their kids, because the school can't do what every one of you does, right, and teach your kid at home. The school just can't support that system. And that's what grandparents, by and large, are doing. They're coming into SOAR and saying, I'm going to do for this child what other parents and grandparents couldn't, not for lack of love and appreciation or effort, just sheer capacity of time, capacity of knowledge, right?
Yep.
But not a lack of interest and desire. But it's going to take a generation of effort.
For sure.
To overcome.
There is
that
no
problem.
quick fix here.
There's no quick fix. I mean, so talking with Cassandra Moore, the principal at Carstens, exactly right. She would open up second, third, and fourth grade like that if we had the volunteer capacity to provide it and the leadership capacity. Because remember, it's 3 grades is about 120 kids. If my numbers come out, that means 120 volunteers. Right? One volunteer takes 2 kids a day, and we do it twice a week. So it's 120 volunteers that are needed. We're not there at Christ Church. And at $1,500 a student, that's $180,000. Right? We're not there at Christ Church. That's a big lift for one school. But that's and we're talking about doing that for 25 years to make that kind of generational impact. Needs to be done. We've got to find the energy, the leadership, the capacity to do that. But it's a significant ask. It's a significant lift.
But if there are churches, so if there are churches even in your network who would do what you do, we could do it. Yeah. Right? If Memorial Church, if there were a few more churches that sat in this room and cast a vision and said, look, as a group of 5 churches, and then we share that financial load, but we also provide the leadership. It can be done. Yeah. And like I say in the video, I'm not sure it can be done without the faith community. It's going to require the faith community.
And just as we're doing this, the 8-year-old girl that I'm working with talks about reading to her 1-year-old sister. So
Amen.
it does snowball.
It does.
Yes.
She's able to do that and talks about doing that with her baby sister.
Amen. I know we're coming up on our time, so I'm going to invite Mary for our last question. So a two-part question. What are the obstacles and misperceptions that faith communities have that inhibit our participation? And secondly, what are the obstacles and misperceptions that we have as individuals that prevent or inhibit our participation? Yeah. Yeah. No, wonderful. Thank you.
I don't know if I have a good answer beyond what we already talked about. I'm bewildered after 20 years of trying to work with faith communities, how often it's just not seen as a real need. I'm not sure all faith communities are thinking about wanting to make a difference in the city of Detroit. They're focused on, which is, again, I'm not trying to be overly critical. It's been way harder. I will tell you this, the DPS, the fact that you guys are willing to go get fingerprinted, I said it to Meg on the way over here, like, to me, that's amazing. We didn't used to have to do it. We had a suburban church that used to send a busload, 2 busloads, actually, of volunteers to work with one of the schools, but as soon as they went to go to the precinct, they just said, we can't ask this group to also do that. So there's been some hurdles there. Yeah, you're asking a great question. I'm just not sure I have a great answer for either of those, other than when you do get out there, it changes everything. It changes you and it changes the school. Yeah.
I know, RK, I'm going to save you for a direct conversation. I know we've got some. Yeah. Well, I know we've got.
Let him go, let him go.
Yeah, but I want to respect the time for everyone. So I'm going to just give you the last word. What is the thing that you'd like us to hear, or perhaps to know, as we go into this season with a heart to not only celebrate Christ in our life, but to really lean into helping with the Carstens Literacy Initiative?
Yeah. I think there's 2 things that came to my mind as soon as you asked the question. The story of Christmas is God with us, Christ Emmanuel, that he came and he dwelt among us, that he was willing, and being very nature God, to not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but he made himself nothing. And he came and he dwelt among us. So there is this call for us to be the same, to go and to be Christ, to go to places that were uncomfortable, to go to places that, and it was part of your message today. So I think that's huge. And any reading of Scripture, God cares about justice. Justice is a theme from start to finish. And this is a ministry of justice, because every kid deserves a chance. Every kid deserves the same opportunities that our children had. Like, every kid deserves a chance to thrive and survive. And so you're given that. And so I just say thank you for that.
Well, thank you. We wouldn't have this wonderful ministry if SOAR wasn't a part of our lives. So thank you for leading that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Vince. Thank you. That's really